Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to U.S. History Through Film as we look at some important events following the Berlin Airlift. Because the Berlin Airlift was a great success for America and Britain. But 1949 was in many ways a terrifying year, one of the most frightening in American history. As in August of 1949, the Soviet Union tested their first atomic bomb, using technology very similar to that used in America's plutonium bomb, thanks largely to communist spies in our Manhattan Project. And in September of 1949, Chinese communists, led by Mao Tse-tung, won the Chinese Civil War and established the Communist People's Republic of China. Although the Nationalist Chinese, led by Chiang Kai-shek, fled to the island of Formosa, now better known as Taiwan, which to this day officially refers to itself as the Republic of China, and technically claims to be the proper ruler of all of China, just as the People's Republic of China claims to also include Taiwan, meaning there are two countries each claiming there is one China, and which China is China would be and remains a major point in diplomacy to this day. And it was immediately a sticking point for the United Nations as the question arose which China would get China's seat in the General Assembly and, most importantly, China's permanent seat in the Security Council. And for now, the United Nations recognized the non-communist Republic of China, with the consequence that the the Soviet Union, for a short time, boycotted UN meetings in protest. But the Republic of China would hold China's seat in the UN until 1971. The U.S. would not officially recognize the Communist People's Republic of China till 1979. In response to this tense world situation, America and Western Europe began to rearm. The United States created a peacetime draft in 1948. And in 1949 did something the U.S. had never before done in peacetime, forming an alliance with other countries, the North Atlantic Treaty Alliance, initially involving the U.S., Canada, and 10 Western European nations, but over time more and more European countries joined. This alliance, in which it was agreed that an attack on any member would be treated as an attack on every member, guaranteeing the United States would defend Western Europe if the Soviets tried to roll in. In response, the Soviet Union and its satellites formed the Warsaw Pact in 1945 to coordinate their militaries better and to defend each other in case they were attacked. Although not every communist country in Eastern Europe joined, Yugoslavia, although a communist country in its own right, as communist forces there had won their civil war after fighting against both the Nazis and royalist forces in Yugoslavia, refused to be dominated by the Soviet Union. They were a communist dictatorship, and Marshal Tito could be a harsh dictator, but at least he was their dictator, leading a communist country but charting his own course, trying to remain somewhat neutral in the Cold War. In 1952, the United States tested the world's first hydrogen bomb, November 1st, on a tiny coral atoll in the Marshall Islands. It was 450 times as powerful as the plutonium bomb dropped on Nagasaki. The tiny island it was exploded on was obliterated, leaving an underwater crater 164 feet deep and over a mile wide. The next year, the Soviets tested their first hydrogen bomb. And for nearly 40 years to come, the U.S. and the Soviets would seek nuclear superiority in an arms race, each hoping to have more and more dangerous atomic weaponry than the other. And other countries joined into this arms race. The British tested their first atomic bomb in 1952. In 1960, France would test an atomic bomb. Communist China would follow a few years later. And this arms race would hang over all the countries in the world during the Cold War. But it would keep the Cold War cold, as neither side would directly be able to attack the other out of fear of mutual assured destruction. The certainty that an attack on one country would lead to the destruction of the attacker as well as the country that was attacked. The old balance of power that had kept an uneasy peace throughout most of the 1800s before falling into World War I had been replaced not by a new balance of power, but a balance of terror. In a constant state of fear, Americans built fallout shelters and bomb shelters in their own backyards, and schools, children learned to duck and cover to protect themselves from an atomic blast.